Welcome to the Poultry Podcast Show. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Bobeck. I'm an associate professor at Iowa State University, and today I will be interviewing Maro Ibarburu from the Egg Industry Center at Iowa State University as well. Maro, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm an ag economist. I got my master's degree here at Iowa State University. And for a few years, I worked for the Iowa Beef Center, doing research and cattle and swine production and marketing. And in 2009, I joined the Egg Industry Center, where I do statistical analysis, marketing analysis, and we distribute some monthly reports to the industry.
Awesome. I've definitely interacted with you before. I know there's probably thousands of people across the United States that get your monthly reports, which I always look forward to. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into poultry?
Yeah, I was working at the Beef Center at Iowa State University, at the Iowa Beef Center, and I saw this opportunity to start working for the newly created Egg Industry Center. I had a lot of curiosity about the egg industry because I didn't know anything about egg production. So very little. I worked in a project about egg production in the beginning. So I jumped in. I got hired for the job even though I didn't have previous poultry experience, but they wanted some ag economist for the job.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think often we find that people are jump into the industry without any experience, but then they find out that it's kind of a cool place to work.
Yes.
Awesome. So what do you do with the Egg Industry Center on a daily basis? You're a data analyst, but what does that entail?
I need to compile data from different sources, mostly USDA, Urner Barry. I also, estimate the cost of production based on USDA data and producer surveys, and also the cost of processing. And we also participate in our projects because our center, we do research, to help the egg production and processing industry. We also finance research in other institutions. But sometimes when a research project I can help with, I participate in that project. For example, a life cycle analysis that we are very close to finish now. So I have been participating in that one.
So on a daily basis, you said that you're collecting and compiling data. How hard or easy is it to get the information that you need to present in your reports?
Depending on the information that comes from USDA, and Urner Barry is easy to get it because, they publish that information. When I'm trying to collect information, survey from producers, that's a lot harder to get, information. That's always the challenge, to get good information.
Yeah. So what kind of reports are you able to send out for those that haven't seen your reports before? And then how do you think people use the data?
Okay, so the reports, there are two monthly reports. One is mostly about statistics that has, how many layers are in the country, egg production, the exports, the consumption, and also a projection of how many layers we think are going to be, in the future months in the country. And the other report is mostly about markets, cost of production, pricing information is there. I don't really know how they use the data. There are many tables there, and not everyone, I think, can look at all the tables. They have one or two tables that they follow closely, but I'm not sure how they use that data. And the cost of processing, we send a yearly report, based on surveys.
So all of your tables are geared toward the layer hen industry, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't follow what's going on in the broiler or poultry.
Yeah. So how I think the tables that I've looked at have been really, really helpful. How often do you do a big compilation of data? So I know you can look at the monthly and sometimes the yearly, but some of the really interesting tables that I've used, I guess, to teach students in my own class are egg prices or egg consumption that were some of the more longitudinal, so we could watch increases or drops that were related to HPAI or other factors.
Yeah, for the most part, we don't send reports with yearly data. I normally, when I invited to do a presentation about trends and outlook, then it's when I use the yearly data. I think that's a good idea to send a yearly data once in a while, to to show the longer trends. Yes.
Yeah. So, what are some of the most interesting trends that you're following right now since you get to look at the data on a monthly basis?
Well, what I find really interesting is how much the price changes have been uh, changing more rapidly since 2015 than now. Um, and I think it's the result of so many things going on since 2015, So
Mm-hmm.
we have what I say is four historical events in 6, 7 years, And so
Yeah.
we have the high path of 2015, that created historical high prices for the time. That was followed by 10-year low prices, on 2016. But then when uh, there was a time where the retailers competed very, very strongly for egg products to use them as a loss leaders. And then the price again went really, really high at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And when they basically move on, the prices already went down again. And then we have, in 2020, we have the COVID situation. And the COVID situation was very interesting because with people moving, to work from home, and a lot of restaurants closing. What happened is that the demand for shell egg really increased and pushed the prices really, really high, while the demand for the liquid egg that normally goes to all the demand that was going to restaurants and hotels uh, almost disappeared, and so the two prices moved in opposite directions and really, really sharp moves, So and then in this year we have high path avian influenza again. So
Mm-hmm.
these are four events that I think in any trend you have to mark what happened there because it's something of historical value, and
Yeah.
it happened in 7 years.
Yeah, that would be an exciting time to be a data analyst because you get to watch a lot of crazy changes.
Yes, and then we have the cage-free trend on top of that, with so many, restaurants and supermarkets, food manufacturers that already pledged that they are going to sell only cage-free eggs by a certain year, on
Mm-hmm.
top of state legislations. So on top of what was going on on that I already mentioned, we have all this conversion to cage-free. Um, that is also historical.
So, out of the regions that you track in the United States, which regions are there any regions that fluctuate more than others, or if there's going to be a change, does it kind of happen uniformly?
Uh, well, most of the regions they kind of move together in terms of prices. The only one that is different right now, really different, is California because they started with the cage-free trend earlier. They started in 2015 with the Proposition 2. The Proposition 2 didn't require cage-free, but required 116 square inches per bird. So they have to convert into that is more expensive. Therefore, the market in California start moving in a different way than the other market for it's a different market now basically.
That's interesting. So do you think the rest of the market trends are going to catch up to what's happening in California as we get closer to those pledges? Or do you think because more of the US has to make that move to cage free that it'll just kind of lag because of the global changes?
There are so many overlapping things there that it's really hard to tell, because we have 10 states that passed legislation that would require cage free. Two of them are already in place, California and Massachusetts. And there are eight are coming in, between next year and 2026. But there are also some of these customers that made pledges to go cage free. But there is some overlap in the terms that there are some customers that made their pledges to go cage free, and they have stores in states that have legislation and states that don't have legislation. And similarly, some of the customers that didn't make a pledge to go cage free, they have stores in states with legislation. So at least for those stores, they have to go cage free. And it's very, very hard to quantify how much overlap is there. And therefore, I think we're going to see many changes, but I don't know what kind of changes and which states are going to be more affected.
Do you like to predict? Are you a predictor or are you kind of an analyzer?
I analyze it, and I get very nervous trying to predict stuff because it changed so much.
Yeah, some of the big outside events. So you said that the liquid market and the shell egg market sometimes have this interplay where one goes up and one goes down. But in general, normal times, does one of those markets have more volatility than the other one, or are they kind of equal volatility? So is one market better to be in at a given time, basically?
I think the shell egg market is a lot more volatile than the liquid egg market. I haven't run an analysis lately, but you have more fluctuations on the shell egg market. You have a lot more stable prices on the dried egg market, for example. And but the shell egg market is the one we have more volatility. Sorry about mumbling.
Yeah. That's understandable. It's consumer purchasing habits that drive that market versus maybe contracts for hotels or restaurants. So what in your job is the most interesting or the hardest part? I think I would have a tendency to want to predict markets, but I know you can't because of the volatility. But I guess what's the hardest and also the most fun part of your job when you have to get all the data for these reports?
The hardest part is making projections, for sure. Even now the flock projections with the recovery from high path are incredibly challenging. So it's interesting to do a projection and next come and see how accurate or inaccurate it was. The most fun for me is when I get good information from the surveys and I can analyze these costs, and see how much variability is, within the industry in their cost of production or processing. That's really, really fun for me to analyze the data that's coming from the surveys.
Yeah, so for anyone listening who supplies Maro with data, keep supplying that timely information and maybe convince your colleagues and friends that they should also supply Maro with some of this info.
Yeah, it's very important and it's very, very, very hard to collect. It's not a survey that you can fill from the top of your head. You have to dig into records, and it's time consuming for the producers, but it's very, very important for us to get good information there.
So I sort of have a feeling that the way high path affected the markets this time has been much different, like you mentioned, than in 2015-16. Do you think overall that because the high pass seems to be more spread out, at least to me, than it did, at least in Iowa as well, we didn't have the same volume of birds in one location. Do you think the markets are kind of weathering this storm a little bit better? I haven't seen as many price fluctuations as we did before.
No, but we had similar price fluctuations than in 2015. Yeah, affected less. Maybe less flocks in Iowa, and the big difference between this high path and the previous one was uh, that most of the introduction this time is from the wild birds to the domestic, birds. So, which is an indication that the biosecurity is better in terms of that there is no people moving the virus from one farm to the other. But it also shows the big challenge that we are having, with this infection. Where it's even doing good biosecurity practices, there people are getting infected. Um, and yeah, it's a lot more spread geographically than previously. And I'm not an epidemiologist to know why it's going on.
I've noticed from the alerts that I get in my email every day that it's already popped up again this fall, and I don't think that has been as frequent in the past. So it's definitely a bigger problem in the wild bird population, and I'm interested to see what happens this fall, and then if it kind of leaks over into the spring again, or if it's a strain that just goes away over time. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. But last time around, basically at the during the summer, it kind of completely stopped. And this year the cases continue to pop up during the summer and now in the fall again. Yeah, so yeah, it's a different with respect to the last one.
Yeah. So part of the data that you compile, I know, is also feed price and inputs. What have those looked like over the last year or two? I know they've got to have gone up.
Yes. Yeah, feed prices. Corn and soybean meal prices. They increased a lot during the last year. I don't have the number in front of me, but was a very very sharp increase on the prices of both. And the last USDA projection from WOSDA show that they expect the corn price to increase 13% more next year, and while the soybean meal price to be reduced 11% next year. So that will result in about a 4% higher cost of feed. Providing that the conditions stay like this. Which is very hard to predict for them too. There are so many things that move this market that their projection have to be moved as new things happen in those markets related to those markets.
Yeah. So when you're doing your predictions and projections, how is the USDA, I guess, contributing to those? Do they do monthly, quarterly, or weekly projections that you're compiling? Like, it's interesting that they've got to compile so you can compile.
Yes, yes, they provide both things. They provide some of the statistics are monthly, some of them are weekly. And the projections are monthly. What they project is all monthly. They project egg production and prices for the New York warehouse prices, and so these are monthly. But then prices are daily, and so I estimate the average of these daily prices. And the number of eggs broken for further processing are weekly, and the exports are monthly. So
Yeah.
depending on the statistic, is a daily or a weekly or a monthly statistic.
Yeah.
So
So what are you seeing as far as trends that for import and export? What's been happening with the the shell, the liquid, and then also feed. I mean, those are three different areas, but what's been happening?
Yes. The imports didn't change much this year, but they are always very, very low. They represent a very, very small percentage of the total market. What happened with the high path is that the export have been reduced um, a great deal since that happened. And so far we see a lot lower export than we were seeing before high path. But normally export, they don't represent much of the production neither. They're, between 3 and 5% for the most part.
Oh, sure.
So most of the eggs that are produced here in the US are consumed here.
That's so interesting.
They are very important, even though it's a small percentage. It's very important because the demand for eggs is very inelastic. So if you have excess supply and you don't have this export market, that will reduce the prices a lot on that specific month. So having a healthy export market where you can ship eggs is very important for the industry.
Yeah, that definitely would change or alter where those eggs could potentially go. So, so let's say that there's an oversupply event and we don't have the ability to export, then where do the eggs go?
Many times you can break and dry the eggs, and so the dried egg lasts for over a year. So you can break it and dry. But also, sometimes breakers, they are at capacity and then it really, really affect the prices, We really need to reduce the prices in order to being able to sell these eggs. Yeah. Many times way below the cost of production itself.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. So, do you know off the top of your head, it's probably a hard question, what right now are the margins between the cost of production and the sale price of, let's say, a dozen of shell eggs? I know it can fluctuate quite a bit.
It fluctuates so much that I, normally don't look at single month margins.
So that brings up the struggle or the difficulties as far as when producers are making a switch to cage free. The margins don't give you a lot of additional revenue to help pay for the structural changes.
Yes, the the research project that estimated the cost, difference between conventional and cage free, the one I am aware of is the Coalition for Sustainable Egg Supply.
Yeah.
That is a few years old already. But they estimated that the cost was about 24 cents higher, So if in normal conditions a producer have a 10-cent, margin, you cannot take that difference from the margin. Therefore, you need a higher price for these cage-free eggs.
Yeah.
So it's not that the producer can absorb that kind of higher cost and investment if they cannot pass this higher cost to their customers and finally to the consumer.
Yeah. So what are you seeing right now as far as trends are going for? Is the cost of cage free right now covering, or do we have an oversupply of cage free eggs?
We don't have much information about the prices of cage free. It's kind of scattered, and we don't have much information about the cost. In fact, I'm doing a survey now and trying to estimate what's the cost differences between the cage free and the conventional. So because the Coalition for Sustainable Egg Supply was a very good project, but I think it was finished in 2014, and producers from there, they have been learning how to manage these systems better, and therefore some of the production efficiencies are getting better, thankfully, and therefore we need to get a better idea of now, what's the difference is. But the cost of building have been a little higher too, in the last few years.
Yeah.
building costs increased.
So do you think, just based on maybe some of your initial research, that the current cost of cage-free eggs is covering the actual true cost, or do you think that producers are subsidizing that in other ways? So, like, do you think the cost of cage-free will continue to increase until we really figure out what it costs? So right now, if I'm selling cage-free eggs, are they being sold at a price that covers my costs?
I don't have
Don't know.
much information,
Yeah.
and there are some reports, that sometimes the customers, they don't take all the cage-free eggs,
Yes.
and then some of these cage-free eggs end up being sold in the conventional markets,
Mhm.
uh, and this is especially challenging for sizes of eggs that normally consumers don't prefer that much, like the mediums,
Yeah.
So some of the data I saw, from Nielsen's contract is it was like 5% of the conventional eggs sold in the supermarket were mediums, while the cage-free medium size were less than 1%
Oh, wow.
of the cage-free egg sales.
Yeah.
So that kind of point that it's hard to get a premium or sell this cage-free medium size eggs at a
Yeah.
premium, and that create a challenge. What do you do with these eggs to recuperate that value? So
Yeah.
that cost.
So what's the favorite egg in the store? What do consumers buy the most?
Well, the majority of the consumer buy the conventionally produced eggs. Um, the Nielsen contract data from mid-July last year to mid-July this year show that 74% of the eggs sold in the supermarkets. So sorry, 76 were conventional, 24 were cage-free, and
Wow.
within cage-free, free range, and pasture raised. So the majority of the consumers, when they're presented with the choice of the lower price conventional egg at a higher price cage-free or free range, then they choose the lower price conventional eggs.
Gosh, is there a favorite size? I always tend to go for the large, but I don't really have a reason. I just go for it.
Yeah, the vast majority of the eggs that are sold are large or extra large. Yes.
I do appreciate the mediums because the shells are nice. I just wonder that because recently I got kind of lazy about checking eggs because they'd been pretty good, and then you get home and barring any of your own damage on the way home, I've just noticed a lot more shell issues. But I mean, this could be a flock or other sort of thing, but that just made me think, like, how much money is lost because of crack eggs. It's probably quite significant in the whole scheme of things.
Yeah, we try to get that answer from the producers on our PCT survey, and but we didn't get so many answers to the survey, and the numbers were very different. So it was very hard to make a conclusion about what percentage it is and how much value was lost because of that, and therefore we never been able to publish anything because the data wasn't enough. That's part of the problem when you don't get enough data. You have just some, but you cannot make any conclusion from there.
Yeah.
It's,
It's almost like a trade secret. They don't want to give up their secrets.
some of them have good information, some of them they probably don't have good information. So but whatever reason, we don't get very good a good number of answers on that. So to being able to publish. But if we ever get good number of answers, that would be an interesting statistic to publish and to for everyone to have. Yes.
Yeah, because then our friends over in the engineering or materials department maybe could make a better quality egg carton.
It's a combination of things. It's the carton plus the well, the nutrition is really important. Genetics is very important. So genetic companies have been trying to improve the shell egg quality through the selection process. So it's there are many aspects of it that and the age of the hen, the size of the egg is also an important component of that shell quality. And really depend on the carton. Sometimes I crack an egg and it's so hard to crack, and then I crack an egg and it's like almost cracked by itself.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Did you ever do the experiment as a kid, the science experiment, where you had to make a little container for your egg and then drop it
No.
from a height and see if it survived?
No, I had seen them, but I never had a chance to participate in that kind of
Yeah.
scientific project. That should be fun.
I think I may have done it as a kid, but we have a balcony in our house, and my husband very much wants to try the experiment, but I don't want to clean up the failed results. I thought, maybe if we got kind of a big group and put a tarp down, we could have a fun evening of testing out egg flying experiments. Yeah, the engineers would probably win that because they would know what kind of materials to make the egg airplane.
For an engineer, it's probably easy. It's for someone like me, it would be very challenging.
No, I get it. But then you could analyze the statistics based on the mechanism of packaging and see who came out on top. I feel like for an analyst, it's got to be interesting because I would really be into watching trends and want to analyze as much data as I could if I were you, because you know how to do it quickly. And I think stats and economic analyses are so interesting because in the end, you have to make something economically viable, right? And the trends can help predict where to go.
It's fun. I really like to analyze data.
Yeah. Do you participate in any like fantasy football leagues, or do you use your analysis expertise in other ways that don't relate to chickens and eggs?
No.
Man, I think we could put your expertise to better use. I think we could put together the optimal fantasy football team. It'd be regular football for me, but probably soccer for you, right?
But still, I never participate in these kind of things.
Yeah. Well, now I know who to contact if I want to set up just the best fantasy team. That I think we can make this work. So, have you had overall good experiences working with producers? It sounds like most of the time they're really willing to work with you because they're probably invested in the data that you put out.
Yes, it's, that's one of the things I really like about the industry. I came to the industry without knowing anything about, or very little about, because I worked in a project with Conway before, but the producers have been very instrumental, and the light companies as well. Everyone in the industry, very instrumental explaining me, the production process, the challenges they're facing. So it's it have been very, very good for me, and I still have so much more to learn. That's a sometimes that's the sad part of, after so many years you still feel that there are so many things you don't know. But they have been very, very helpful, showing me, how things are done and why they're done this way.
Yeah, your reports have to make sense to them, so they're probably invested in making sure that they can get the best information possible.
Yes, but I like to learn about what's going on at the farms. How they mix their feeds, and how they process their eggs. This kind of stuff that maybe I don't use it for economic reports, but it's fun, to learn about an industry, whatever industry you're into. It's fun to learn these little
Yeah,
details that make the everyday work.
yeah. Plus, the chicken people are fun. You have to like variety and not having the same day if you work in the poultry industry. So, oh. So what is there something about in your either in your daily job or just in what you've learned maybe that could change the future of what you do? So is there something that you've kind of discovered or that you've been understanding about the poultry industry that could make future reports better, or trends that you've noticed that maybe you noticed before because you work with the data?
I don't know how to put it, but we make changes on the reports as we learn that new information come out or better information. So sometimes as information disappear, some information that we were using in the report, it was discontinued, and therefore we had to make changes. But always looking at what information is out there that we didn't know about it, or new information that they are starting to report, and then we incorporate it into the reports as we go. Um, adding one table here or there, and sometimes eliminating one table because the data is not there.
You sound very flexible and responsive, which I think is awesome.
Yes, we tend to keep what we have, but there is something new, and we tend to add stuff, so the reports are getting bigger.
Yeah.
So, I, I don't want to delete information that maybe someone is using it,
Yeah.
so I add the new information to the reports.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I like looking through them, and I learn about the feed input cost. And for teaching students, it's really helpful to show what the actual production costs are and then what people sell their product for. And tracking those changes over time is amazing because sometimes you're in a very weird part of history, which is what you described, and then other times you're in very status quo.
And feed represents a very large proportion of the total cost.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
formulation for lower cost feed or better feed conversion, that's those are key, for the producers, and as well as purchasing the ingredients, in a way that they can reduce their feed. If they can make something in their purchasing habits that reduce their feed, it has a huge impact on them. So
Yes. Gosh. Yeah. Yeah. The feed's got to be great, but it also has to be a responsible and sustainable cost.
yes, yes, and adjusting the feed to the production level that these hens have is very important, because these hens are very productive. They're very, very productive. So if you have a problem with the feed, the most likely thing that you're going to see is a drop in production that might be very, very sharp. You know, uh, with seen some data where you see feed drop, egg production drop very, very, very quick, and then they tell you, this is, we have this problem with the feed formulation, we didn't correct for this or that, and that's very impressive to see.
Wow. Yeah, that would be exciting to make a direct correlation causation relationship, because those are not always true. But in that case, it sounds like got your answer.
I've seen in some experiments too, where but everything is controlled, and they have some problem with the feed formulation, and then
Yeah.
they see the drop right away.
Yeah.
Since the hens produce eggs every day, you can see changes right away.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah.
I would like to tell you a little bit about the Egg Industry Center and what we do, if it's okay for you.
Sure. Yes.
So the Egg Industry Center, it acts as a bridge between the egg production and processing and the scientific community. The producers are making everyday decisions, and they need science-based information so to make those decisions. And we basically help in different ways. One is connecting these producers with the different experts on different fields, different scientists. Another one is when they need certain information, scientific information. We can help them find what have been published, in peer review journals, this kind of stuff, and or who is the expert in that area as well, as well. And then we also finance research, not only our own research, but in other universities across the country, to try to basically create new information about the problems that the producers or the light companies need to solve. But it's mostly producer oriented, so the producers know what they need to solve, and then we try to fund the research that they need that year. Sometimes what happens is the most important thing for them is one topic, and next year is a completely different topic. Like now everyone is so concerned about high path avian influenza, how to improve their biosecurity. But the previous year was mostly about the cage-free transition, how to solve the challenges, with the mortality, feed conversion, dust in cage-free. And so many years we get a lot of proposals from the scientists, and many of them are very good, but they are not exactly what the producers is top of mind that year. Maybe next year that is moves to the top because something is going on. So, but basically this is the way we work, and we also have a forum, that is every year where we basically have presentations to the industry about different topics that are selected by our board of directors, that are a combination of industry and academic and producers associations, this kind of stuff. So
yeah, it sounds like it's a much needed bridge to help connect the two producers along with information, and then help get them real-time answers, which is really important.
Yes, and it's hard to keep track of all the information that is out there, for everyone,
Yeah.
Even if it's your own field, there are so many new publications, so much research going on in different parts of the world, and here in the US as well. A lot of information is generated here, but there are some other information that is generated in other places that can be extrapolated to the situation, and so it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, I agree. The amount of information that comes out on a daily basis is really hard to keep up with. So the answer could be out there, but sometimes you just don't know.
Yes.
Because it's so new.
Yeah, and many times happened to me looking for information for someone that asked, coming across information that I didn't know it existed already.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, that's an exciting part of your job, though, too, to be able to look and compile new information to help somebody out. I mean, that's key. So I'll ask you the 3 questions that we ask everybody on the show. And the first one is, what is your favorite poultry-related book or resource?
Yeah, my favorite book is the one that was published by Don Bell. This commercial chicken neck production book. Yes, that book, it's very long,
Yeah.
but have chapters on every single angle of the egg production industry and
Oh,
processing, and so
yeah.
it's my first to-go book.
Yeah.
When when I want to know about something specific, I go and look at that book first, and
Yeah.
then look at the other resources. That's the
Gosh, that's good. It's not very common to have physical books anymore. So I love physical books. I like leafing through papers.
Yeah, this is a huge book,
Very
but
big.
uh, you go to the chapter you want to learn about,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and it's very nice to have it.
Yeah. Gosh, I should have a stack of those on hand for my students. Everyone can learn something from a book like that. What is your favorite book or resource outside of agriculture?
Yeah, I don't read that much, outside of the shop, because my shop requires a lot of reading, so I don't read that much. But there is one book I really like. It's called Miracle in the Andes, and that's about a tragedy that happened in the early 70s. That and, I'm originally from Uruguay, and this rugby team was flying to Chile to compete there. Kind of friendly games, I think. And the plane crashed, and it crashed there on very very high on the Andes, and they have to survive more than 70 days on the snow
Wow.
without any outside resource. Um, and it was a very traumatic experience, as you can imagine. You know, uh, but this book was combined the history of what happened with how they were feeling at the time. How they felt when they learned that the
Mhm.
search stopped, for example, because
Yeah.
they had a radio that was they were able to listen, what was going on, and it was a time when they learned that nobody was looking for them anymore. So the search for them stopped, and they said, okay, this is the time when they have to plan how to get out on their own. And this is what
Wow.
you know. And so what I like is because it not only say they call the story, but how you know what things went through their minds at the
Wow.
time. And it's so it's a and at the end, I think was 16 of them survived.
Wow.
Uh, you know, but it was a very 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 incredible story.
Yeah.
How they survived.
I should put that on my reading list. It sounds really good. So the last question, in your opinion, what sets successful poultry professionals apart from those who are not?
Uh, I think it's a combination of qualities. The egg industry is very competitive, and so I think having a very good knowledge, on how to run the operations, how to do the marketing, having the right people on the right places, uh, you know, uh, hiring and retaining good employees, having the experts on the different places you need to solve issues, like health and nutrition, productions in general, processing in general. So the sum of all these small details, I think is the key, for these companies to thrive.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk. This was really fun. I always love talking to economists because somebody's got to do the tough job of working with all the numbers, and it's you.
No, thank you for the opportunity to talk at the podcast, and I'm I'm glad I do it. It's just my first time, so I don't know how to talk in a
You
podcast.
were awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.